Welcome to August 50 Blades of Grass, getting all the dirt. Good morning, John.
Good
Thanks.
morning.
Thanks for taking the time to get together with us to share some of your thoughts and answer some of the questions that the members have. Our first question is an interesting one. I've often thought about it too, and that's how do you determine the mowing patterns of the fairways? I mean, it's really looks neat to see these diagonal things, but is it different, the same? Do you leave it up to the operators? Do you give them some guidance?
We do. We have actually a, a a board that when we assign these tasks, these operations, we normally go by the rotation of a clock, 12/6 straight down the middle,
Ah,
8/2, 10/4,
okay,
and we leave it up to the operator because they know best where they leave off and start those patterns.
okay,
There's other patterns that we can introduce as well. There's a half and half or a tuxedo or whatever you want to call it, where one side is mowed one direction and another side is mowed the opposite direction.
okay,
So it does alleviate some patternal, possibly tire tracking, maybe some grain issues, but most of it is just optics, the way that blade is bent to and from the sun.
okay. All right, good. That's a good answer. Okay, great. The second one relates to the greens, and I know a lot of the golfers are not really do they fully understand the stemp and the stemp reading and so on. Maybe you can kind of just share a little bit of what that reading really means.
Okay, the stimp meter is it's a tool. It was developed way back in the 30s.
Okay,
The USGA probably was more starting to be used in the 60s and 70s, and iterations of what it did or what the design was. But primarily, what it does is measure the consistency from green to green. It wasn't really meant to say, oh, we're going to try to achieve this through this reading. So when it's mostly you're measuring the resistance of ball roll or what influences ball roll from
okay,
green to green. That could be moisture, it could be your mowing height, could be your exposure of the green, could be just the very species you have growing.
okay,
So we have on these greens primarily POA, a little bit of bent, with the exception of 6 and 11, of course. But an average green speed probably for club play is 10 and a half to 11. And then during tournament play, maybe 11 and a half or 11 plus.
okay. So the way it works, one of the members of the maintenance staff sets up this little rig, and it's a given height off the green surface. It has a sloped surface, and they put the ball at the top of the slope and let it roll down. And as it rolls down, you get a reading, a stamp of 11. It means it rolls 11 feet. A stamp of 12. It means it rolls 12 feet. So this should give you a better understanding of how the stemp meter is used. Okay. So
So,
when you get that number, is that the distance the ball rolls off the meter?
right. So that's in feet. And we
Okay.
do several directions from a single point. So
Okay.
the important thing is that we have to find the flattest part of the green.
Okay.
And a lot of these greens, as you know, they're not
Not
very
many
flat.
flat parts.
So we can only take a couple greens and really use them as a guide. We have on the stimp meter itself, there's a way that you can measure greens that are a little more sloped or a little
Okay.
more, so we just get an average reading. And again, it just tells me if this green is rolling this, I expect the next green to be somewhere close or near to it. It
Okay.
doesn't determine our cultural practices or anything else in terms of wanting to get higher green speeds or,
Okay.
longer distance. It just tells me we're in the ballpark. Um,
So when you implement the test, is it on every green or do you just sample
no,
some of the greens?
we only, for instance, we choose number 9. We choose the clubhouse green. We'll choose a spot on the new number 11. We'll choose a spot on 12.
Okay.
But we have to choose the same spot on those greens again, just to kind of give us an average. We can't
Okay.
really do anything on one or 15 is a spot we can use. 16 has some spots. Again, it's more of a random selection.
Okay. And so the controlling elements are one, the height of the grass, maybe the moisture, and what about the rolling?
Well, rolling will influence your green speed. I mean, you might be able to gain 4 to maybe 6 inches of sustained, distance. I
Okay.
mean, it's not it's short-lived,
So
but
the rolling doesn't have that much of an impact. So,
well, it can really again depends on your exposure, your moisture of the green, and so forth. What even to the time of the day you roll.
okay.
No, but there's a second purpose to that.
Yes.
There's some footprinting that we alleviate,
Yes.
just more of just getting a uniform, somewhat a uniform, consistent area around the pin, around the flagstick.
Okay. So then you take these average stemp readings and you develop a practice for either that day or the next day, saying, "Okay, guys, let's cut the grass a little shorter. Let's roll this, not roll it." Is that the
No, well, okay, so we're not going to really alter our mowing height,
okay?
uh, except seasonally when we do that.
Okay.
I think our primary influencer is our moisture level,
Okay.
profile.
All right.
We can get them firmer. I mean, the then we can get much more of a truer rolling effect.
Okay. All right. Good. The next one, and I think you've answered a couple of the questions that came up that I shared with you. The next one really is, what efforts are we taking to try to avoid wetting the bunkers or with the sprinklers?
Well, currently our bunkers have small pop-ups around them,
Hmm.
but we do have perimeter heads that will actually water close to the bunkers. Some of them, there is some overlap spray in the bunkers. For the most part around greens, we try to avoid that.
Yes.
Uh, but I think in fairways, we there are I know of some fairways that do the heads, the fairway heads, maybe even the rough heads hit the bunkers. So it's more so getting immediate coverage from these small pop-up heads, so we don't have to really. We just try to avoid excessive moisture in there. But Jim, there is overhead spray that hits the bunkers.
Yes. So I guess you have the wider area sprayers and they're controlled, and then the pop-ups come up at a different time to try to prevent as much water as possible from going
Well,
in.
yeah, and as a matter of the hydraulics of the system, the
Mhm.
the the larger heads water first, and then
Yes.
it's a secondary of the smaller heads, much earlier in the morning or later in the evening.
Um, we have had concerns in the past about invasive grass that comes into the fairways. Is this still a problem? And how are you trying to address it?
So, what is an invasive grass is the question. Is it the Bermuda? Is it the bent grass? Is it the Kikuyu grass? We have all of them growing. So, and
Probably all of those.
well, I mean, that is the challenge out here. We have such a multi-species stand out here, and that again, that affects our cultural practices, it affects our fertility, it affects our watering practices. Which turf type do we serve? We're not targeting, we're not trying to culture a specific species. So if we had all ryegrass, we'd be irrigating and fertilizing and doing other cultural practices to ryegrass. But Jim, we have everything under the sun. We've got Bermuda grass that's sporadic. Sometimes it's a dominant species, like for instance, number 9. It is encroaching on, or it is on 18, but then on 18, we also have bent grass patches.
Hmm.
We have obviously the rye and annual bluegrass that's out there. And then we've got tall fescue in the roughs. So, and that's being somewhat a poly mix of species as well. So, I mean, I don't think I mean, this is what happens to an aging course. You get that blend of turfs over time. Chemistries weren't available back in the day when maybe targeted spray applications could have been done. I mean, we do have some now for Bermuda grass and for bent grass alone. But where do you start if you say we want to get rid of an invasive grass? I mean, we'll have big patches almost on every fairway if we just pull out one of those species.
So I noticed on 11, there seems to be some new grass appearing.
Yes. So we on 11 we have we're very aware of we do have a broadleaf issue first of all in the fairway that is going to be addressed here fairly shortly.
Okay.
We do have nutsedge that is growing in the wetter parts of the roughs. And we do have sprays that can take care of just that. So that is part of our program, is to just selectively spray out those species.
Okay.
But you know, that just tells us how, you know, the environment out here,
Yes.
what can grow. I mean, everything grows here.
Yes. Okay. Next question deals with the number 18 tee box. What were the reasons associated with redoing that? I think the membership would appreciate
Well,
understanding that.
I think that was part of a bigger plan when holes 9 and 18 were going to be redone. And I think there was a lot of still questions as to how to treat the water feature for 9 and 18, the impact of mobilizing, what play was going to be impacted, how the contractor was going to get in and around in a timely fashion. I think ultimately it was decided that at least let's do, because we had everything, the supplies as far as irrigation goes, at minimum do the 18th tee. And
Okay.
off the top of my head, Jim, it was quite a while ago. I don't know what the decision making was in terms of what, you know, moving forward with 9 and 18. I guess it wasn't palatable what was being decided on those two holes.
Okay.
So, but at minimum, the tee had to be resurfaced and then
Okay.
brought up to standards as far as the level of the tee, the level of the surface, the gopher barriers, the irrigation system.
Okay.
It now is under a brand new heads that are within our central control,
Okay.
along with 6 and 11.
Okay. The last question that we have is, and I know that you have a lot of projects still remaining, but what are the top 2 or 3 projects remaining in 2003 for the in-house activity?
Well, we certainly want to finish the resurfacing of number 5 and 13
Mhm.
black tee. We had planned bank thinning of 3, 18, but it's just a matter of what else is going on in the golf course in terms of, you know, just prepping for the invitational applications that we have to do. So not trying to rationalize why we haven't done them yet, but we certainly have to focus on certain priorities without getting too ahead of ourselves with some projects. I mean, I'd certainly like to do more projects, but at the moment we're kind of focused on the next couple of weeks. So we're looking at after the invitational or after the ladies event that's after the invitational to start doing more bank work on the golf course.
Okay.
Um,
Bank work, does that?
Well, just thinning out the turf stand, trying to get
Okay.
rid of some of the thatch in
Okay.
a lot of these areas.
Okay.
And, you know, we still have drainage projects we had on the books since early
Yes.
January, but the rains kind of messed that up for us.
Okay. Another question, which is not on this list, and it's kind of more of a statement. We, as the golfing group in general, has noticed a lot more divots in the fairways. I'm not sure that you're not able to control that, but are you seeing that as well? I mean, I think I think the practices by many of the golfers has really slipped significantly. And I know as I play around the golf, I'm per hole, I'm filling 4, 5, 6 divots all in the same area. Somebody's taking practice swings and doesn't have a sand. Any comments on that?
Well, and I don't know if this really, I mean, we certainly do have more play on the golf course.
Right.
That might impact that a little bit. Um, and I mean, I certainly have noticed on particular holes, the divots are much more pronounced than other holes.
Mhm.
11 is a good example.
Yes.
Um, so what we are doing is when we do have free time. Now, when I say free time, I mean we do have a divot crew that goes out there and just spots divots on occasion on 11, 15, 17, and 6. I mean, those are
Yeah.
kind of the ones that really get hit up pretty good.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Uh, so on occasion, we'll be out on 1 and 10. So we do have a crew that goes out as second or third duties that we'll just send them out on a random hole that we've seen
Yes.
that,
Yes.
just needs a little more attention.
Well, I think it's also the membership has to step up and really increase the awareness and also implement corrective action so that when they make the divot, they use the sand to properly fill it. And I think that'd take a little bit of the burden off of the maintenance team. So, well, good, John. Appreciate you taking the time, and we'll catch up with you next month.
Okay, Jim,
All
thank
righty,
you.
take care, John.
All right.
Now, don't forget to send me those questions. That makes this podcast go. So remember, send them to this email address right up here. Thanks again for your help. Or you can add your questions below in the comment field. And don't forget to give me some likes.